The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. So we sat in the house, all that cold, cold, wet day. The Cat in the Hat is a children's novel by Dr. Seuss that was published in 1957. The story centres around a brother and a sister who are visited by an anthropomorphic feline and his mischievous things while they are home alone. The cat and his friends turn the house upside down while trying to play with the children, and clean it up with a multi-armed machine just before their mother returns. The book got a sequel in 1958, aptly titled The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, and also got an animated adaptation in 1971 by CBS, with Allan Sherman voicing the cat.
Hello, Muddah. Hello, Fadduh. Here I am at Granada.
Yes, that Allan Sherman. But there was something missing. A proper live-action adaptation of the book. Following the success of the 2000 live-action adaptation of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey, this seemed like the perfect time to make one. According to an article by Entertainment Weekly, Tim Allen of the Santa Claus fame was originally cast as the cat. He said he was scared of the character as a child, stating, "My dream is to give it the edge that scared me. Like Alien, we'll see very little of the cat. He's a human being who turns into the cat, like a werewolf or vampire." Maybe I'm in the wrong or perhaps right demographic for this, but I actually may have preferred this version of the movie for what it was, but that's not the film that we got.
Yeah! Oh yeah!
Instead, Mike Myers, as in Wayne Campbell, Shrek, and Austin Powers, was cast in the titular role, and well, the resulting product is the reason that I'm making this video. If you're a returning viewer, you know the kind of films that I generally like to talk about. This film terrified me as a kid, but I had it on DVD, so I watched it way more than one would think. Definitely too many times. Am I remembering it to be scarier than it is though? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
First off, we get some Seussian-style versions of the film's production logos, something that I do think is a really nice touch, especially with the cat hat on the DreamWorks fishing kid. Much like any other Seussian adaptation, there's a rhyming narrator to kick off the action.
So our story begins at the corner of Main and Monterey, in the spotless real estate office run by Hank Humberflube.
It's been 4 years, come on, I don't want to see any more of this. So, this is where the movie's mum, Joan Walden, played by Kelly Preston, works, and her boss seems like a really well-adjusted individual.
If your house is as messy as last time,
You're fired!
This scene is an interesting choice, that's for sure. I mean, it's certainly memorable. This was one of the only scenes that I remembered from this film before making this video because the shouting really hurt my ears as a kid. Joan has to host a meet and greet party for this guy's company, and this is probably to increase the stakes for later when the cat creates a huge mess. This is fine by itself, and Humberflube's bombastic personality is probably meant to be funny, haha, quirky, random for kids in the audience, but from a story standpoint, it's kind of unnecessary. If you're hosting a party for work and your house is trashed, that's really unprofessional even without such a high-strung boss. The babysitter that was looking after Joan's children has to leave last minute, so she heads home. Oh my god, cat paws! This is obviously not actually the cat. I also had these kind of slippers back in the day. I'd hope it wasn't the cat because that would mean the costuming would look incredibly cheap. These are the movie's siblings, Sally, played by Dakota Fanning, and Conrad, played by Spencer Breslin. Here we get our first look at how these kids are on the opposite ends of the 2000s kid in a movie personality spectrum. Why are some siblings like this as kids? No offense, but you know who you are. As Conrad left the door open, their pet dog Nevins escapes. Joan's creepy boyfriend, Lawrence Larry Quinn, played by Alec Baldwin, manages to catch and return him to the Waldens. This'll come up later.
It was my pleasure, Sally. Anything for my little princess?
Oh, I don't want to be a princess. In a constitutional monarchy, Parliament has all the real power.
Okay, our little Prime Minister then. Happy now, Sally? Following what the movie has been trying to establish, Conrad simply antagonizes Larry while Sally just tries to pander to him. Laying it on a little thick, I think, movie. Larry tries to convince Joan to send Conrad to military school, which is pretty mean, and I'm sorry, but it's not up to him. What is this, Bill and Ted?
What? No way, sir!
Kate's Catering. I'm here to do your party tonight.
Oh, hi.
Hey, I know you! It's Clint Howard, who played Hubris in The Grinch, as well as starring in numerous horror films like The Ice Cream Man and Silent Night Deadly Night 4 Initiation. The very stressed Joan is ordered to come back to the office by Mr. Humberflube, so she calls up a lady called Mrs. Kwan to babysit while she's gone.
Mommy, can't I have some rules?
No chewing tobacco.
Thanks, Mom.
Why and how the hell does this kid even have access to chewing tobacco? Joan and Conrad then have a weird outburst where Conrad complains about the prospect of military school, and says he wishes that he had a different mum.
Well, sometimes I wish the same thing.
I felt the same way about this as a kid as I do now. It just comes out of nowhere and feels really undeserved and mean. What exactly did either of them do to prompt such a statement? If Conrad overheard the conversation between Joan and Larry earlier, he would know that his mum seemed unsure and a bit put off about the military school idea. And given that Conrad is around 12, it's kind of inappropriate for Joan to respond like that. She does look like she regrets it at least. Conrad spies on Larry through the window, and discovers that he's lying about work, in reality being unemployed. Boyfriend of the year, everyone! It starts to rain, and the recreation of the scene from the book is pretty spot on. Poor Conrad and Sally look miserable. The sibling squabbling is pretty spot on too. The kids hear a thumping sound coming from the wardrobe, but Conrad decides to give us a fake-out jump scare.
Like you saw a monster.
A monster? Where?
Number 14, don't disturb the humanoid. You can see that this creature is thin and bony. It looks skinny and sunken in, fast, with a high metabolism. Its reaction time seems way too quick for any ordinary person. Its face looks like a cross between a man and a
cat.
The nose looks like it belongs to a
feline.
But the gray, lifeless eyes and smirking mouth look like they could belong to a person. Perhaps there are even more of them out in the wild.
Humongous. I prefer the term big bone to jolly.
Christ! Fuck! What is that foul, pale ghoul staring back at me?
No, what are we hiding from?
Seriously though, is the cat trying to scare them? Because it really seems like it. Why is he doing a horror movie bit? Or a few things left over from that original idea?
I'm a super fundiferous feline who's here to make sure that you're me-line, key-line, turpentine.
I get what they're doing here. They're trying to address the Susian rhyming scheme so that they don't have to do it for the whole of the film, but it's a bit too on the nose for my taste. They didn't rhyme for the entirety of the Grinch movie, but there weren't any jokes like this to establish that, so this just doesn't seem to be needed.
Where did you come from?
When a mommy cat and a daddy cat love each other very much.
Is there any reason for him to have a New England accent? I don't have a problem with it, it just seems a bit random. And what's with the wheezing laugh thing?
Humana, 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 humana. Who is this? Oh.
That's my mom.
Awkward. Yeah.
Did they seriously just make a boner joke? This is one of those movies, isn't it? It's trying to be appealing to kids with all of the haha random XD jokes and visuals, but put in a bunch of adult references so that the parents watching this with their kids don't fall asleep 10 minutes in. This kind of approach really doesn't seem to work as well as studios seem to think it does. The cat uses his phonometer to assess that Sally is a control freak and Conrad is a rule breaker. Just spend 5 more minutes with these kids and that will become very apparent. Next, he insists on a very forced musical number, despite the kids' protests.
I know it is wet and the sun is not sunny, but we can have lots of good fun, that is funny.
Mike Myers doesn't have a terrible voice, but again, he's trying a bit too hard with trying to make the humour work here. Nevertheless, the fish interrupts him, but this doesn't go anywhere. Fun fact, the fish is actually voiced by Sean Hayes, who also plays Humberflube. This is a reference to Portuguese-Brazilian singer CarmenMiranda, but when I was 5, I didn't get it. It just kind of confused me. I get it now, but that's thanks to Wikipedia rabbit holes. Why is he now a bullfighter? Genuinely, what is happening? Somehow, the kids are impressed and are subject to fall for the cat's emotional manipulation.
No, you have to stay.
All right, I'll stay.
Yeah!
Oh yeah!
Okay, that "oh yeah" soundbite has played in my head at appropriate points for over a decade, and I could never remember where it was from. Maybe this film had more of a psychological impact on me than I had first thought.
Who are they?
Magical time-traveling elves.
What?
Okay, they're my lawyers.
Objection!
If they actually fell for that, wouldn't that be fraud? You can't just trick people, especially minors, into signing legally binding contracts. I hope you pay those lawyers well, Cat, because you're going to be needing them. The cat makes their couches extra bouncy, and Larry walks in on the children jumping on them, something that their mum explicitly told them not to do. Larry then raids their fridge like an asshole and leaves because, although he's hiding, the cat's presence is setting off his allergies. When Sally suggests that they make cupcakes, the cat starts this weird cooking show where he's the host, the guy in the sweater who asks all the obvious questions, the special guest, the Cheshire Cat, as well as being in the audience. What is the cat's level of power exactly? I'm also not sure if this is a parody of a specific show that I don't know, or just cooking shows in general. I will say that Mike Myers does do a pretty decent job of putting on various English accents overall, but he still says Cheshire in a very American/Canadian way. Nice Alice in Wonderland reference though. A kid could get that. I'm shocked that they didn't give him a huge smile. Anyways, this show ends about as well as one would expect.
Son of a bitch!
The batter from the cupcakes that they were making gets everywhere, and the splotches look really artificial, giving them a very odd appearance. Was this done with some kind of decal or paint or something? There's something very off-putting about it. So, the cat takes Joan's dress and uses it like a rag to quote-unquote clean up the mess.
She was gonna wear that tonight and you ruined it.
Honey, it was ruined when she bought it.
She's got a point.
The cat brings out his red crate and introduces the children to Thing 1 and Thing 2. These things are horrifying. I mean, look at the makeup here. It's not straight up scary, it's just really uncanny valley like they're about to steal your skin or something. The things unwittingly make more mess, much like the cat, and it turns out that they do the exact opposite of what's instructed of them. This seems to be a way of showing Conrad how he appears to other people. Funnily enough, Conrad also unlocks the cat's crate, and the seemingly alive lock attaches itself to Nevin's collar. The things throw Nevins out of the house, and this lock is also the only way of stopping the mother of all messes from escaping the crate. With only 4 hours left until Joan's party, our heroes use a sleeping Mrs. Kwan to weigh down the crate's lid while they relocate Nevins. Mrs. Kwan goes through so much in this film. She's the real MVP of the story here. The group head into one of the neighbors' yards while on the hunt, and Sally gets a lesson of her own when she realizes that one of her peers didn't invite her to their birthday party. While I do sympathize with the character as she is just a kid, I can see how being so bureaucratic could put other kids off. As he doesn't have enough time to hide, the cat pretends to be a piñata when the children come out. This leads to one of the most confusing segments that really creeped me out as a kid.
We do have his description. Can we take that? Let's take his description. Okay.
I don't know what this scene's deal is. What's the joke here? Anyways, they do find Nevins, but Larry gets to him first, so they have to make a plan to distract him and rescue their dog. All things considered, the cat's weird car does fit in with their weird town.
We should all drive.
I actually liked this part as a kid, and I thought the idea of a car with 3 functioning steering wheels was cool and figured that it would be like Mario Kart in a cartoon universe. Saying that now, it's definitely a dangerous idea in real life. The cat distracts Larry from going into Joan's office by pretending to be a hippie guy who gets him to sign an environmental petition.
I'd like you to sign my petition. Yeah.
Get out of my way, you hippie freak.
They have to get through a club to escape Larry, and... is that Paris Hilton? The cat drops his hat, his power source, in the commotion, and picks up one of the ones on the floor. This is apparently the wrong hat, and Larry snitches on the children. Using the thing's opposite rule, Conrad gets the little creatures to distract Joan on her way home, but Larry ditches her to get there before them. The house appears to be fine, but Larry sneezes and falls through the paper disguise. I'm gonna be honest, this looks hideous. It doesn't look fun. It looks like a 2000 CGI nightmare concoction. They use Mrs. Kwan like a roller coaster and...
You mean like at Universal Studios? Cha-ching.
Really, guys? An ad for Universal Studios? The animation of them on the ride is really obvious chroma key too. It was 2003, I'll try not to be too harsh. They find the crate, and the children have to learn a bit about trust when Sally gets pulled into the tornado, and Conrad has to let go of her hand in order to reach the lock. It's a nice little lesson for them, as they seem to be arguing a bunch until all of this happened. The house falls apart and spits out Larry, and Mrs. Kwan must be a really heavy sleeper if she can sleep through all of this. It turns out that the cat was lying about his hat being the wrong one, and had actually planned most of the day.
Quinn taking Nevins?
Yep.
Cutting off your tail?
Nope.
They yell at him to get out, and I don't really feel bad for him. At this point in the story, he seems like kind of a dickhead. He lied to them and helped destroy the house, albeit the children do share some responsibility for being so willing to break their mother's rules in the first place. Just as it seems like all hope is lost, the cat arrives with his cleanup machine and fixes everything to a cover of getting better by Smash Mouth, as according to the contract the children signed earlier, they have learned their lesson, and so it's all well that ends well. They bid the cat farewell, and Joan is impressed by how clean the house is, and how well the children seem to have behaved. Larry arrives looking like a giant piece of bubblegum, and while he's telling the truth, he sounds and looks like he's having a mental breakdown. Things are gonna be real awkward from now on, considering that they're neighbours. The party goes really well, and then it's revealed that the narrator is actually just the cat using a voice modulator in one of the jokes that actually made me laugh while watching this.
And tremendously attractive, but in a sort of real way, kind of approachable way that I think you don't see these days.
Oh, hello, I was just,
So, about that Tim Allan adaptation. Should they have just gone with that one? I'm not entirely sure. The plot is very strange as it deviates into long gags, and there are so many fourth wall breaks. It's made abundantly clear that the cat is very much aware that he is in a film that's being watched. Maybe they had some trouble stretching the book into a feature-length film, because unlike the Grinch, there's less room to write a backstory that makes sense for the character, and part of the appeal of the cat is that he's a bit mysterious. Perhaps that's also where the scariness of the character comes in too. Aside from the strange early 2000s visuals, something that I always found a bit unnerving, yet intriguing about the cat in this film is the obscurity of where he comes from.
But it says made in the Philippines.
Yes, but not this Philippines.
Apart from my suspicions as a kid, I must credit the YouTuber LS Mark for bringing such a question to my attention. Aside from the fourth wall breaks, the cat generally doesn't seem to have to follow the laws of the universe in a somewhat magical way. Is he an alien? Some kind of demigod? A wizard? He's evidently dishonest, so does the hat even really matter when it comes to his apparent power source? While it is appreciated that the film did try to work in a moral for children, I think that this aspect of the plot does end up being a bit watery, as the main focus seems to be the cat's antics. I will reiterate that although cartoonishly exaggerated, I found Sally and Conrad's dynamic somewhat realistic. I did allude to this briefly during my commentary section, but I'm really iffy on the effects of this film overall. The CGI is incredibly dated, and the strained look of it was really eerie to me when I was younger. In terms of the practical effects and things like makeup, I do feel like the cast and crew were trying their best, but it looks plasticky and uncanny valley. You can even see the seam where Maya's head ends and the prosthetic begins. That's no hate towards the makers of these effects. I know that it takes a lot of effort and time to make a film. It's just that I wish that they altered the design or material slightly so that things like that seam weren't so obvious. Hindsight is 20/20 though, of course. The false, glossy look of this film could be explained by the fact that it was directed by Welch, who is a production designer on films like The Lost Boys, Beetlejuice, and Edward Scissorhands. In fact, the bizarre dollhouses that the characters live in look like the town in Edward Scissorhands. That served as a good contrast in that film though. This could perhaps explain the mix of cuteness and creepiness here. Now, this film is supposed to be funny, and I explained some of my issues with its style of humour. This may not be the case for some kids, but I never found the haha funny random XD humour in this film funny, and the adult references always left me feeling puzzled as to what they were talking about. I knew that there was a joke there and that I was supposed to laugh, but I just didn't get it. Upon watching it now, I did get all of the jokes, but it was even less funny for the most part. I feel like what really makes this film suffer is that they're trying to do Jim Carrey humour without Jim Carrey. Mike Myers can be funny. I love Wayne's World, just not with this style of comedy. There were a few lines that did make me chuckle during my rewatch, including the fourth wall break at the end. Here are a couple of the other lines that I thought were done well.
That's impossible!
You're not just wrong, you're stupid.
Now wait just a minute! But I will happily hold your canine American, yeah.
The Cat in the Hat is listed on Wikipedia as the second and final live-action feature-length Dr. Seuss adaptation after How the Grinch Stole Christmas. According to a 2016 article by Vulture, this is because it was so widely panned that Dr. Seuss's widow banned any other live-action adaptations of her late husband's oeuvre. Not great, is it? This may be because although it won and was nominated for a few awards praising it, it also won and was nominated for many more awards dunking on it. Another contemporary article by Entertainment Weekly details how they were actually planning on making a sequel to this film based on the sequel book, The Cat in the Hat Comes Back. I kinda wish that they did go through with it, just out of morbid curiosity, but considering that Seuss's widow wouldn't approve of it, I get why they didn't. However, there was a video game released along with The Cat in the Hat in 2003, which I never played, so I can't say whether it was good or not. An article by Warner Bros. From more recent years explains that an animated adaptation of The Cat in the Hat is being released this year, and I'm hoping that it'll have the same meme potential that the Lorax did back in the day. I can only hope. We'll have to wait and see. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time, 'cause Polos is life. Polos